In this video, we're going to look at Sublime Text, our web browser Chrome, and we're going to work on exercise 1B, our first lesson from textbook 1. So let's open up Sublime Text. This is our code editor that we'll write our HTML in. I'm going to size this so it uses less of the screen. I'm going to open up Chrome. That's our web browser. So the first thing I want to do, let's look at the beginning file for exercise 1B in our web browser to see what our starting file looks like. So I'm going to go in Chrome, File, Open File. I'm going to navigate to where I have my files on my hard drive. I have it in a file called hscott class. These are all my book files that I've downloaded. I'm going to go into the news website file. And we're going to start with the Microsoft.html page. I'll double click that. And that's what it looks like in the browser. There's no formatting whatsoever. It's just raw text. So let's see what that code looks like in our text editor before we start editing it. So I'll go over to Sublime Text and I'll go File, Open. And I'm going to go to the same place. I'm going to hscott class on my hard drive. I have multiple copies. I want to use a fresh copy that I haven't edited. And we'll go in hscott class. We're going into the news website folder, and we're going to use the Microsoft.html file. You'll notice that the text has been formatted to where it looks nice in the text editor, but there's no HTML code to make it display anything but as a monolithic group of text. It's just all pushed together. Even though it looks nice in the code editor in Sublime Text, it still looks awful in the web browser because we need to add some HTML. So let's add some of the basic HTML tags to this lesson. So let's go ahead and add our first tag at the very top. We have to open up and start our document with the HTML tag. That's the first thing we're going to start with. So let's add a bracket, HTML, close that. HTML tag just basically states to the browser, this is going to be an HTML document. Please treat it as that and display a web page. The next tag we're going to put in is the head tag. The head is the first section of a website. The main thing you need to know about the head tag is that it does not display anything in the browser. The head tag just contains tags and other data that make the web page work, but the user will not actually see any of the data that we code into the head tag in their browser window. So in the head tag, let's add a title tag. The title is different than the file name. The file name of this page is Microsoft.html. The title is unique. Each page should have a different title on your website. It's going to show in two areas. It's going to show in the browser Chrome, and it's going to show in the bookmarks area of the page if your user bookmarks this page in the browser. So for title, they just want us to call it Latest News. From The Onion. Remember to close your title tag in the head. So we'll do a bracket, a forward slash, and a title. After that, we're going to close our head tag. Now we're going to go down and we're going to open a body tag. The body area is the second set of code for the web page. This section actually is what is going to be seen in the browser window by your users. It's going to be content and other tags that format that content in the browser window. So let's do a body tag. After the body tag, we're going to go to the end of our page and close the body tag. And then to finish the page, we're going to close our HTML tag to finalize our web page. So there's our HTML closing tag. I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to refresh my browser window to see what has changed. Nothing should really change because all the text has not been formatted. We've just set up, these are the basic necessary tags for the web page to be an HTML page. So let's save this. I'll save as. I can save back into the same place, and we'll save the same name, Microsoft.html. I'll place that. I'll come over here, and this little icon that has the kind of little loop is the reload the page. That's going to refresh to my latest code. So nothing changed in the browser window because we haven't formatted any of our HTML in the body area. But do notice up here in our browser Chrome, our titles replaced the generic name that was in our tab in our browser Chrome. It has the same thing as the title, latest news from the Onion. This is what will show when you have a good title in your web page. So let's look at some other tags that we can start formatting this web page with that'll make it look more interesting. We're going to add headings. Headings go H1 through H6. Headings are really great because they help users scan a web page rapidly. They kind of make things bold and create a return that creates a line of white space under the heading. Headings are also important as they help in search engine optimization. So use logical headings in your content so people can rapidly scan your page. H1 is going to be your biggest heading, H6 is your smallest heading. The key thing to know is you should only have one H1 on each web page, but you can have multiple H2s through H6s. So let's code a heading. We're going to put it around the first line of text at the very top, around Microsoft patents 1s and 0s. So we will put a bracket, H1. Remember to close your heading. So at the end of that line of text, we'll bracket, close the H1. Now let's look at that in the browser window. So we're going to do a file save as. You could do a save, but I like to do save as because it makes me see the file name once again to make sure I'm not overwriting the wrong page when I'm coding late at night. So I'm a save as type of person. So we're going to save that, replace it, come over here, refresh the browser window. You can see that's our H1. It's big. It automatically creates bold text. You can see here that it creates a return and it always puts a line of white space under it before the next line of content or code starts. So under that, let's put an H2 on the second line of text. So put an H2 in here at the beginning of that line. Remember to close it at the end. Actually, I'm not going to close it. I'm going to purposely show you an error to show you what happens when you don't close your tags. So if you don't close H2, it should make the rest of the text content on this page into an H2 size. So let me save as. Save that same page name. Place it, we'll refresh and look at it in the browser. You see how it's a little bit smaller and all of this text is an H2? We don't want that. We want that to stop it where it says industry. So we're going to come back into our code editor, into Sublime Text, and we're going to close that H2 tag. We'll save as again. Replace and correct that. Refresh. Now you see that we have an H1 with H2 being a little bit smaller but still bold and creating a line of white space under the end of the H2. So those are heading tags. Another tag that you can use around a group of text content to kind of isolate that so you can apply CSS to it later is called the paragraph tag. So we're going to do our first opening paragraph tag, which is a P tag. We'll go over to our text editor and we'll open a P tag here. And we're going to define this first block of text going all the way to where it says Monday, and we're going to close that P tag there. So it's a bracket, / and a P. Let's file save as that and give it a look. Same page name. Refresh that. Now you can see there's a P tag that starts at Redmond, Washington and ends at Monday. It does a similar thing to the H1s. It creates a line space of white space at the end of the tag. Things that create a white space and then return the next line are called block level tags. They always close and will create a line of white space before the next content or HTML shows up. So let's put some more paragraph tags in. So we're going to put another paragraph tag that starts with the patent. We'll open one here. And we'll close one at giant down here. It's kind of cool that Sublime Text does auto tag complete for you sometimes. So I'm going to file Save As and save that as a page name. Replace it, and I'm going to refresh the browser window, and you can see we have a second paragraph created. When you first start coding, try and add a few tags, save it, and then check it in the browser fairly often. Don't code a bunch of HTML and wait and check it all at one time. You want to do what's known as iterative design, where you code a little, check it, code a little, check it, because if you code something wrong and the page blows up, it's better to do it step by step so you can see if you make an error, you'll know which step you blew up your page with. So another thing, we'll put another paragraph tag in, and we'll do some other patents. It's just going to be a one-line thing. Close it down where it stops at owns. Save as. Let's see what happens there. Refresh the browser, and it made that into a paragraph as very little text, but it did force a return, and you have your line of white space before the next text content. Let's put our last two paragraphs in down at the bottom. We'll put one in by Wall Street. Close after read more. We'll put one in by this report. And we'll close after the onion. Now we'll check that. And we have all our paragraphs in. Now you'll notice that we have this thing that says Windows Vista, Microsoft Office, and Xbox 360, and it's all on one line right there. We're going to look at a new tag now called a list tag. Lists put things in a vertical order with either a symbol or a number or a letter next to them in the list. You have two main types of lists. You have the ordered list that's going to have a letter in sequential order like A, B, C, D, or a number in sequential order like 1, 2, 3, 4. If you have an unordered list, that's just going to put a little black dot or bullet next to it. So let's look at this. Our book wants us to do an unordered list. So we'll go into our code. And before you do the list item, you have to say what type of list it's going to be. So I'm going to code an unordered list that'll put a little black bullet in front of each list item. So first I state bracket UL for unordered list. Then I want to close the list down below the last item. I'm going to save this and look at it. We're not going to have a complete list, but I want to show you what happens if you don't do the whole list code. This is just the beginning of the list code. So we're saying we want an unordered list. Refresh your browser window. You notice it did not make a list. It just kind of indented it a little bit. That's because we need to designate each one of these three items here as a list item. So we're going to use an LI tag in front of it, bracket LI for list item. Then we're going to close the list item after it. So we're going to go bracket closing. So each one of these should open with an LI for the list item and then close with an LI at the end of the item. It's kind of nice how Sublime does the automatic code complete at times. Also, the other thing I like about Sublime Text is notice we have line numbers here. That's really nice. And we have color-coded code to help you define things more rapidly than you would in Notepad or TextEdit. We'll close this tag. We'll save it. You notice now we have a vertical list with each one of the list items having a bullet next to it. If we had done an ordered list, it would have an A, B, C, or D, or ABC since there's only 3 things. Other things you can do is you can emphasize parts of your content by making things bold or making things in italics. So let's go ahead and make where it says Redmond, Washington bold. So we're going to go back to our text editor, and right inside, you do it inside the P tag, not outside. We'll do it inside. We'll use a tag called strong, S-T-R-O-N-G. You want to close that right after the Washington because you only want those pieces of content to actually be strong. If you didn't do that, it would make the rest of the text on the page bold. Let's look at that in the browser. And notice that just got bold. You used to be able to use a tag in HTML called a B tag for bold, but we use strong now because it's more correct, and strong actually helps us in search engine optimization. So use the strong tag, not the B tag. The B tag is a depreciated legacy tag. Let's put some italic text. We're going to come down here where it says read more in our browser. We're going to make some emphasis by doing italics. So I'm going to come down here where it says read more, and right in front of the read, I'm going to put an EM for emphasis. Then after the 3 dots, but before the closing P tag, I'm going to close that tag. Let's save that. Refresh it in the browser. You can now see that's now in italics. There's a legacy HTML tag called the I tag for italics, but stick to the emphasis EM because once again, that's going to help you in your search engine optimization. So let's go back and do a little housekeeping on our web page. There's a tag that every page should have before the HTML tag. It's called the DTD, the document type definition. It's going to tell the browser which version of HTML you're writing the page in, so it'll help it validate it. And we'll use a tag called doc type. Usually it's best practices to code all your HTML in lowercase. It will work in lower or uppercase, but lowercase is better practices. But for the doc type tag, you do want to use all caps for part of it. So at the very first line, you're going to go bracket, exclamation point, doc type, give it a space, then you can go lowercase and write HTML, and then a closing bracket. You don't have to close this anywhere, it's just a single tag that tells the browser that you're going to have an HTML5 page coming in to render it in standard mode instead of Quirks mode. Let's modify the HTML tag a little bit on the second line. We're going to go and let it know that this page is going to be in the English language. This will help with audio browsers for people with disabilities, and it also helps with search engine and validation. When they parse the page, they'll know it's an English language page. So we'll go lang equals quotes en quotes. So we've updated that as well. And let's do one more piece of housekeeping in the head of the document. Before we get to the title, we'll come down and create a line space there. And we're going to use something called meta, M-E-T-A, space, char set. That's for character set is what that stands for. and we're going to define that to use special characters. Browsers can help interpret weird characters like trademarks or copyright symbols so they display properly on the page. So we're going to tell it we want to use a char set of, in capitals, we're going to go inside the quotes, UTF-8. And that's just a special character set library that's preloaded into the browser so it knows how to interpret special characters. So let's save this. You should not see any real change in the browser after all this. This was all just housekeeping to make your pages validate correctly and run better in audio browsers. But let's save as. And it created a little bit of space up there with adding the doc type, but it did not really change the overall look of the page. So that's exercise 1B. Also remember, the book has a lot of things where they talk about how you can configure Sublime text in the beginning. I did not actually do any of the modifications. I'm just using Sublime text as the base install so I don't confuse any of you with all sorts of preferences and other things that they suggested. So that is 1B from textbook 1.